So for our last topic, we're going to talk about zoning. And specifically, we're going to look at the zoning within the town of Brookhaven. Each municipality, which would be, for the most part, town level levels of government, and it could even be taken down to a village level of government, will have zoning ordinances. And the purpose of zoning is it divides the land up into different zones or districts. And they're typically broken up into residential, commercial, and industrial districts. And what we want to do is we want to take the town and put residential properties next to residential properties and commercial properties next to commercial and so on. And we want to kind of map out and master plan the area so that you don't have residential properties right next to heavy industrial properties. We kind of want to smooth out that transition. So we'll probably take large-scale residential. When I say large-scale, we're talking about large areas of land, 2 acre or more. And then we'd probably transition to maybe 1 acre zoning, then maybe half-acre zoning. Then we get into some transitional business, which would be light business that kind of mixes well with residential. Then it would further move out towards heavier commercial, and then finally get into industrial locations. So you're not putting heavy industry right next to people's homes. Those areas don't mix very well. Now, does that mean that you don't ever have that occur? Oh, of course, we will find cases where you have an industrial site right next to a residential site. But if you're planning it out, and this is all for the planning, we don't put them next to each other. Okay, so that's the idea behind zoning. Within town of Brookhaven, we're going to look at zoning. It's in section 85 of the code, and I'll show you how we get to the code. But there's 950 subsections to the zoning code. You're not going to be able to read through all of them. I've never read through all of them. But you do need to know where to find things and how to look things up. So we're going to take a look at what that is. Before we get into actually where we go look for it, there's a couple things you need to know about. First of all, as of right development. And the term as of right, you'll hear that thrown a lot in zoning circles. That just basically means that you are doing things according to the code and you're not asking for any special permits or variances by a town planning board or by a board. So an as of right development complies fully with the zoning code, and an as of right development cannot be denied by the town board. If you do it according to the rules, they cannot say no. If they do say no, you have grounds to sue them and you will win in federal court. Okay. If you do have a project where it doesn't meet zoning fully, there's little things that might not comply, maybe an offset distance or a landscaping requirement. If that's the case, you may have to go to the town board or the planning board or the Board of Zoning Appeals. And any 3 of those bodies can offer you a variance or a special permit to do something a little bit different than what the zoning allows for. Now, many people will say, it's my land, can't I do what I want? And the answer to that is nope, you can't. Okay, it is your land, but you can only do things on that land that the town or the local level of government permits you to do so. Even if it's something that is legal to do in the United States and legal to do in New York State and legal to do in Suffolk County, it does not mean that that's permissible in the town of Brookhaven. Okay, so just because you own the land, you've paid for it, you pay taxes on it, that doesn't mean you get to do whatever you want with it. All right, so we have to be very, very careful with what can and cannot be done on pieces of property. So let's talk about where we're going to find this. There's a website, generalcode.com, and generalcode.com, we'll go to it right now. Generalcode.com. And this is basically a repository that holds all the different town codes that are there. Back when I first started out, this was all done in print, and you would get updated books once a year, and you'd have to read through each of those pages to find what you needed. Now we can do searches, which makes it much quicker. So if we go over to the code library, this shows us all the locations in the United States where those, and Canada, let's not forget Canada, all these municipalities have given parts of their code to this online library. So if I click on New York, This now lists all the towns and villages and even counties, because upstate it's more divided by county, all the different areas that have been supplied the website with their zoning codes. So we're going to look at Brookhaven. So Brookhaven, all right, do a Control F, Control find. There's my town of Brookhaven. And when I click on that, that takes me to the town of Brookhaven code. And just real quickly, there's a lot of stuff in here. Okay, so this first part of it, these are all the different laws that the town has. Some of them are applicable to us, and we'll take a look at them a little bit later. But for the most part, these are things we're not really going to be dealing with at this time. What we want to take a look at is section 85. And I'm just going slowly so you can kind of look through the different ones that are here. And on your own time, you can absolutely go through more of this until we get to section 85. Now you notice that the numbering system kind of skips around a little bit. That's because there's certain sections called land use legislation. These are all the town laws that have to do with subdivisions and land permits and things we can do with our property. So you'll even see some things. Hey, SECRA, we just learned about that. All right, so Chapter 85 is your zoning code. So let's click on zoning code. And it's going to take a little while to load because there's a lot of information in here. So at the top of the zoning code, it gives you the most recent laws that have been passed. So in this case, we had a zoning amendment. I'm not really sure what this is. Local Law 3-2020. We also had, that was passed in February of 2020. We had another one passed December 19th, 2019. So the zoning code constantly gets changed. It's not something that's a static document. It does get updated over time. So if you jump into the code itself and you start scrolling down, you'll see that there's quite a bit of stuff in here. Okay, what I've done is I have a document on Blackboard. I'm going to show it to you right now that lists the highlight of the different categories. And the first thing we're going to take a look at are what's called residence districts. And this breaks down all the different residential areas into different zones. A district, A residence 1, A residence 2, B residence 1, C residence, D residence, A residence 5, A residence 10, bed and breakfast, accessory apartment daycares, and so on. There's a lot of information in here. Each one of these districts has special information that needs to be applied when you're designing out a site plan. For instance, when we get into the A residence districts, it'll tell you the minimum square footage. It'll tell you the maximum size of the house. It will tell you the offsets from the front, side, and rear yards. All that information is there. And it gives that for each one of the districts that's there. Then we have what's called multifamily residential districts. This would be things such as apartment buildings, planned retirement communities, the PRCs, planned retirement congregate housing communities, health facility districts like nursing homes. All of that would be in there as well. Then we have the MHC, which is the mobile home community. They have certain requirements for that. Horse farm residence districts. The portion of Brookhaven that is on Fire Island has their own districts. That's the Great South Beach and Fire Island. They're broken down into other districts as well: residential, oceanfront, dune, commercial, and so on and so on. If you want to do a golf course, that can only be done in golf course districts. And then we have it broken down into the business districts. This is where we have what we consider to be true commercial businesses. And as we get further into this, you'll see that not all businesses have to be in a business district. Some can be in residential areas. And vice versa, we can also put some residential properties inside of a business district. But we'll get into that a little bit later. The business districts are broken down to J, J2, J4, J5, J6, and so on. So there's a lot of different business districts that tell you what type of business you can have in those given areas. Then we have the industrial districts. Okay, industrial 1, 2, and 4. 1 is light industry, 2 is heavy industry. And we want to make sure that we limit the type of activities that occur in a heavy district just to the heavy district areas. So let's say you're doing some sort of chemical plating. That's typically a heavy industry. We wouldn't put that into what we consider to be light industrial. Then we have the Ronkonkoma Hub. Okay, this is a special zoning package that's been created for the redevelopment of the Ronkonkoma train station. So they actually had to recreate their own zoning code just so this could be created. We also have historic districts. What else? They also talk about wireless communication, renewable energy systems. And I put the renewable energy in there because it does kind of dovetail. If you are taking green building with me this semester, we spoke about wind energy conversion systems. That's your windmills, geothermal energy systems, and solar energy production in their facilities. The town has specific zoning as to where these facilities can be placed and what the requirements are. And then the almost to the end, the latter part of what we're going to be discussing are the land development standards. This is something that overlays on top of all the different districts we talk about. It tells you all the setback and buffer requirements, highway buffer requirements, street trees, landscaping, parking requirements, exterior lighting standards, how do you deal with corner lots and waterfront lots, intersection visibility for roads. What else do we have in here? Uses prohibited in front yards, the allowance of sail trailers and offices, temporary structures, swimming pools, animals, all that stuff's going to be in there. And lastly, it goes through subdivision regulations. Subdivision regulations are going to explain exactly what the requirements are for submitting plans for a subdivision. It'll also go through the idea of cluster development, which we'll speak about, and then what are the necessary steps that have to be taken in order to get that completed. So those are the key things that General Code goes through. Now, before we get further into the districts or further into the code itself, I want to take a look at this part that talks about attachments. And within the districts, within the zoning code, there's going to be numerous pieces of information. For example, when we talk about residence district, it'll tell you the different offsets that are required. Those have actually been put together in a table. I'll just pull this up real quick and we'll go through it later. That table tells you for each of the different residence districts that you have what the different dimensional criteria are. This table is always going to be the most up-to-date piece of information. So we always look at that in terms of numbers rather than the actual code itself. Okay, so as far as attachments, we have residential, multifamily we'll talk about. It's actually not even there anymore. We have some overlay districts, which we'll speak about a little bit later, some clearing standards, planting recommendations, exterior lighting, and then the Ronkonkoma Hub use and land implementation plan. Okay, so we'll be going through all that stuff.